carnival atmosphere has already started here in Sao Paulo as Brazil welcomes the Formula One Grand Prix. The Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache has been a staple of the racing calendar for decades, and soon we'll once again be watching the best drivers in the world give it their all. It's a bit of a cloudy day for the race, but the atmosphere, as ever, is electric. Looking now at the Williams. They're in pole position, and they've got to be happy about that. And looking at the second Williams car. They're in second place on the grid, but that could so easily change in the first few seconds of the race. Everything's been building to this. Who will win? Only time will tell, here at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. It's lights out, and away we go!
Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome back to F1 Manager. This is episode 116, and the final episode of F1 Manager 2022. We have 23 coming out any time now, but at the time of recording, I'm still about a week away from that. But wrapping things up. We've got 2 races to go, beginning with Sao Paulo, Brazil. As we have of late, underfueled, but we have our best components for this one. We're still only half a second faster than everybody else, though, as they have been closing that gap on us here late in the season, as I've been putting in far fewer upgrades than previously. And with those fewer upgrades, some teams have played catch up a bit to us. I have done research for next season just because that's what you do. I have worked on contracts for next season. I have one left that's not done yet, and that's Jack Doohan, so we're going to keep an eye on that one. But speaking of Jack Doohan, he will not win the championship. Why? Because Porsche has already locked it up with 2 races to go. We locked up the Constructors' Championship with 4 or 5 races to go on the season, maybe even 6 races to go. It was well before the end. So it's cruise control for these last 2. The only thing that I'm left competing for in these last 2 races is to get a maximum haul of points. And the reason for it is I do this thing called the Gaming Decathlon. I mentioned this right at the end of the last episode, so if you're watching them back to back, you just heard this, but if you're watching this days apart or didn't catch the end of the episode, then you might have missed out on that. But the Gaming Decathlon, hence the Decathlon Gamer, has to do with getting something resembling the Olympic Decathlon, the event, the 10 events, track and field. Each of those roughly is based on a 1,000 point score, or 10,000 combined for the 10. I originally started with 10 games on the channel, going over a 2-week cycle. Actually, it was a weekly cycle. I was doing 1 episode per game each week, so 10 episodes a week is what I had initially on the channel. I've since gone into just doing whatever makes sense, 5, 6, 4, 7 series at a time. But I still, on the background, keep track of each individual game. I've since scored what I need to succeed in the Gaming Decathlon portion. But now it's just on a game-by-game basis, seeing how it compares to other series that I've done on the channel. For this one, we have the opportunity to top 900 points with this race, with this episode. And it would be the first time in a while that I've had a series get up over a 900. I'm not quite sure where it will fit into the rankings just yet. I need to figure out what that total is and figure out what happens in these 2 races. But we are 10 laps in, pulling away nicely from the field, but still only 10 seconds ahead of the Ferraris. Yeah, we have not seen them at the head of the pack for a while. The chase pack, that is. Oh no, oh no, oh no, no, no. Oh boy, folks. That was not good. That was not good.
Who's that just crashed? Let's take a look at the replay.
Seeking the overtake. First time all season that we have come in together. Looks like a right front suspension brake for one of the drivers, and that's Porsche. Porsche Doohan is still out front, but he has problems. And we have safety car. We must pit here. Let's find out what the problems are first. Terminal front wing damage, minor chassis damage. It's early, but we're going to have to pit. We'll go to the hards now. We might have to go hard, medium, soft later. This race is definitely not over. We have a chance. No penalty for Doohan. Pourchaire is the one who caused the incident. That front wing change is definitely going to
We'll retire the car.
change what happens with this pit stop. Pourchaire picks up a penalty anyway. It's going to carry over into the next race. So he's going to be seeing a grid drop.
I'm in for lane.
Doing into the pits.
Watch the white line on exit.
Traffic is absolutely coming. We're going to go down the field quite a bit. Tire change quick, but the wing change ongoing. 7.8, not a terrible stop, really not. But where does it bring us back out? All the way down in P11, just ahead of Latifi there. The white line to maintain a mid-grid position. We have the chassis damage, but otherwise we are fine. We are good to go. Others are going to pit, and that's actually going to bring us back out front. So I think we're okay, but we're going to have an extra stop to make. So really, at some point, we do have to make progress. We will have to overtake some cars. And I went really light on fuel, so it's going to make us fast for the next little while, but it's going to set things up in a very strange and peculiar sort of way. So it's finally happened. All of those 1-2s running together has finally resulted in one of our drivers wiping out the other. It sees a DNF for one. It's seeing the other drop back to 11th place on the grid. And with every opportunity to move up, he can still win this race. Will he win this race, though? It's been a while. We'd really been comfortable for quite some time. And Gasly, tough to finish the overtake on, mostly just because the Schumacher keeps blocking us every time we progress, and both of us are right on the gearbox of Schumacher, so it's causing this back and forth. Finally, we do put Gasly away, and then Doohan now up on the gearbox of Schumacher and looks to the inside. Who's on the soft compound? Really? Okay, he's the only one on the soft. He's not pit yet, so he's down to 50%. We are pushing here. No reason not to, other than the fuel situation, but we have got to make that progress through the field. Russell is next. Not an easy overtake until we run out of ERS, which looks like is going to happen quite soon. I'd really like to get that one more overtake.
Check the DRS.
Battery empty.
DRS
Battery empty before we get Russell, but we are able to get up beside him. We'll get the inside for 2, but the outside for 3. As long as we can overtake him down the straight, that'll be fine. Everybody else is going to drop below that 60% threshold here pretty soon. We will go into harvest mode in the near future, but let's keep an eye on the intervals here. Okay. Take on as we head to the main straight, and we've already gotten around Norris and now Verstappen. We used up that battery there real quick and ruined the chance. Maybe not. Without DRS, Verstappen ultimately was a sitting duck, and that's P4. Back to balanced. Back to neutral until I can put some distance on these guys and get into that no man's land, in which case we will back off pretty quickly. 8 tenths, 9 tenths, over a second to Verstappen, but not quite. Yes, there, we got it. Oh my goodness, Doohan already almost on Piastri. I'm going to go light for a little bit. Just cool the tires. They both dive off into the pits. There we go. We are offset from everybody else, but ultimately we'll have as many stops to make as them the rest of the way. Leclerc defending to the inside. That is the race leader. We are up to P2, but virtual P4. For now, let's refill that battery. He might be diving off into the pits this time. We'll need that for later. Ready to go neutral if he dives off. He does. Back to neutral. 3 more cars into the pits now. Norris behind us at 2.7. Norris last one on the mediums. Sainz behind us on the hards. And Magnussen. Looks like they pit the same time I did. Did they pit during the safety car? Perez is the first car. That is on fresh hards. 20 seconds down, P5.
That's a stonking lap.
Norris pits. Let's go conserve for a little bit.
So lift and coast level 3.
Copy.
We don't need to recover all of it, but we need to recover a bit of fuel here. It's already lap 24.
That sounds like someone's gone wide
18
there.
seconds ahead of Magnussen already. 19 seconds ahead. We still have an extra pit stop compared to everybody else to make here, as I don't have a set of hards to get us to the end of the race, and mediums won't make it to the end of the race,
Someone's run
so
wide.
I will have to run the softs at the end of the race to make the distance, presumably. Maybe I could push and go long if we go light and go balanced. 0.9.
Low fuel, so be mindful of that.
That did a lot to recover the fuel. 18.5 seconds. I think we might be able to prolong this stint for a while. Put ourselves in position to take the mediums to the end of the race.
Someone spun out.
Big thing is, when were we supposed to pit? We'll have to pit early, obviously, but how early? 51%. Running a similar pace to everybody else. In fact, they have closed up on us a little bit, but our fuel situation continues to improve, and tires aren't degrading too quickly here. 15.5. I think when he gets inside 15, we'll push back to normal, even though it... Oh, cars are already pitting. Okay, back to standard. Cars are already pitting. Putting on mediums? No, hards. So, were those the guys on the mediums? Okay, we've got cars on the hards pitting now, so it's time. Let's go ahead and pit. Mediums. Yeah, I think we made up the ground we needed.
Oh, there's a spin.
2.478 for Doohan. We come back out still in first place, 13.5 seconds
Looks
ahead.
like there's been a lockup.
20 laps to go.
It's a stonking lap.
We got the new fastest lap, so let's go ahead and back off. Get that fuel right. We do need these engine components for one more race. Let's hope Porsche does not have any of that type of damage.
Sounds like
15-second
someone's locked up.
advantage. We're into the green. Go ahead and go neutral from here. That's not a big lead. It's Piastri P2. Ocon just moved ahead of Leclerc. The Ferraris have slipped down the order a little bit. P4-5. Norris challenging to also squeeze past them. And then Gasly, Russell, Red Bull. Are they focusing on next year's car for a change? They kept focusing on the here and now, and it hurt them a lot, as they're well off pace this year. Lap 63. Fuel's right. Tires. They're tired. They're exhausted. They could use a break. There's only a handful of laps to go. We're going to be just fine. 22-second advantage.
Seems to have been a lockup.
We've lapped a handful of cars here. We're down to 12 on the lead lap. Sainz into the pits. Can't make the distance. Now 11 left on the lead lap. And we begin the final lap of the race.
This is the last lap.
Doing 25 seconds ahead even after the problem. Porsche, you know, that was our first big wreck in about 10 races. It's a real sign of how far these two drivers have come. They are still not the quickest drivers. They're still not the cleanest drivers in the field. But they are doing so much better than the Haas, the Aston Martin, the McLaren drivers at the back of the grid that make mistake after mistake after mistake. Remember Spa, when Doohan was taken out by a lapped car just before the end of the race with just a mere laps to go, way ahead in first place. Porsche had whatever issue it was, I don't remember, but he was recovering from the back of the grid. I think he made a mistake on lap 2 or 3 and went to 20th and had been fighting back through the grid and was up to about P4, but was not going to recover any further. Probably he might have gotten back to 4th or 5th or 3rd or 4th. That would have been about it. He did end up winning the race though after Doohan was wiped out and taken out of the race in DNF. 35-point swing, which is about what it was. With this DNF, look at the gap. Look at the gap between them. 36 points. They would be neck and neck. They would be right there, maybe a point apart from each other heading into the final race. Really unfortunate that that happened, that the Aston Martin wiped him out that way. Also unfortunate that points were dropped here. Definite points were dropped. We get fewer. My calculation adds 13 because it's divided by 2. So it's a bit shy of where we need to be, maybe, if we're going to get over 900 in my Gaming Decathlon score.
We're at Yas Island in Abu Dhabi for the Formula One Grand Prix. The Yas Marina circuit was completed in 2009, and we've seen a fair share of celebration and commiseration over the years since then. The scenery may be spectacular, but this weekend, all eyes will be on the track.
For the first time all season, we do not qualify on pole, and Porsche took a bit of a shunt. That gearbox is not looking too great, but wasn't worth it to take the penalty. So, yeah. Wow, this is different, folks. Porsche are doing P5, P6. Penalties, though, for many cars, including Porsche, 3-spot grid drop because of the shunt that he put into doing there. And so this is going to be different. Neither driver on the front row. Doohan should be starting from P3, row 2. Let's get to it.
It's like clear skies tonight, with the drivers now in their grid positions. Looking at the Williams now. They've managed a third-place start for this race, but can they turn it into a win? And looking at the second Williams car. They're in the front half of the pack, so there's plenty of potential for them. The race start is mere seconds away. Hold on tight. It's the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
And we've started from P3 and P5. Under fueling only by a single lap this time. We can push, definitely, as we don't have anything after this. This is the last time anything's got to get used. Final race of the season.
That's right.
Doohan already up to P2. Porsche battling right now. And cuts off to get P5, but Verstappen is able to get in front of him. So it's Leclerc who leads ahead of Russell and Verstappen. So whatever penalty one of them took, it was only a couple of grid spots down. Leclerc. Not sure why we're so slow at this track compared to everywhere else. How you go from half a second faster than everyone on literally every track to suddenly you're 3 or 4 tenths slower. That's a drastic change. What about this track put us off so much? But Pourchaire has already made his way past both of the Red Bulls and into P3, which means he can definitely back off now because his teammates got to get by first. And get by, we're going to look to do. Ferrari already being forced into defending Leclerc. Pourchaire's all over the back of Leclerc here. Yeah, doing steadily pulling away a bit, 9 tenths ahead.
It's a stonking lap.
Copy.
We are going for the two-stopper, by the way. You can see a handful of cars going for the soft, soft, hard, medium approach. We are going to do the medium, hard, medium. Doohan has already gotten a 1.5 seconds ahead of Leclerc, so he's got him out of DRS range. And Pourchaire gets around Leclerc. Leclerc also has a more than 1 second advantage over the Red Bulls. Pourchaire gets back within DRS range of Doohan. And is nearly out of DRS range, about 8 tenths ahead of Leclerc already. And now over a second. I don't want to overtake our teammate. All I care. Perez spins.
Very good.
He's not the one behind us. It was Leclerc. Perez goes to last place. All I care is about getting these guys out of DRS range and doing what we normally do, which is pull away from the field. We have managed to do that. Leclerc is already 4.5 seconds back.
Did somebody spin out there?
So, not the start we wanted. We had to make our way through the grid a bit. Missed out on pole. For the first time all season. Only once all season did we not have the fastest lap. We have won every race, I think. Yes, we have. We've won every race. We've had our DNFs. Maybe 2 per driver. Maybe 3 for Doohan. But we are 11 seconds ahead, pulling away. And recovering some fuel.
Crash. Let's see what happened there. Let's have a look here. This was the Aston Martin.
Giovinazzi with the crash here. Just runs too deep and can't get the car right and crashes. But no DNF, no safety car. Doohan pulls in for his stop. It's 2.566. That's a pretty slow one, giving Pourchaire a chance, but those mediums are in pretty sad shape, so he may not have the pace.
Box.
Pourchaire in for his stop. Is it faster? It is, but only by about 1.5 tenths. And I think he might have lost that over the course of the lap as the sun is setting here in Abu Dhabi. And Pourchaire does come back out in P2, actually well behind his teammate. A lot further behind than what he was. He lost a good second on that lap.
Fuel.
Closer look. Now, just watch the Mercedes.
Sun very much
here.
setting now, and Ocon is going to run deep and have the same crash that we've seen,
And there,
though
we
he
see
doesn't
the
bounce
crash.
off the wall here. But he is able to get it in reverse, keep it running. And we set a new fastest lap in the meantime. That happened behind us, so there was no safety car for the area, but we end up lapping Ocon by the time he rejoins the track.
They've gone wide.
fuel recovery going pretty nicely here. You can tell Porsche has the busted up gearbox, as Doohan is spending a lot more time outpacing him today than normally. Porsche generally runs at the front of the pair. Really still is running at the front of the pair more often than not, but even though Porsche led, I did have Doohan pit first. His tires were in a lot worse shape than Porsche's, and actually Porsche ran an extra lap on top of that. So 2 laps later, Porsche pits. It means he is going to be behind his teammate. 2.7 down as the undercut has benefited Doohan. However, Porsche ultimately could and should be the faster driver from here on out. We still probably need to do some lift and coast for these guys. Half a minute ahead of the chasing pack. Let's go ahead and let them run a few laps here and keep an eye that the fuel might just about make it without having to lift and coast, or they might have to lift and coast. It's going to be close. Final 10 laps of the season, of our so-called career for this series, for this edition of F1 Manager. It's been a lot of episodes, 116. Thank you for being with me for 116 episodes. That is a lot. And a lot of these episodes have been pretty long. We've been 45, 50-minute episodes on a pretty regular basis. So each episode a bit longer than what you get in the others. Now 1.3, the gap, and the fuel is nearly right. We'll go a little bit longer there. Kind of a difficult overtaking place there, but it didn't seem to cost... it did. It cost us a couple tenths on the exit from the chicane. Not able to get on back on the throttle as early as you would otherwise because we had a poor entry. Oh, and Porsche, the very next straight. I thought he was too far back. He was about 7/10 down. He had some great momentum with that DRS and caught up and under braking. Overtook Doohan into the race lead. Lap 53. Just as Porsche goes into the green, Doohan manages to get back around him. Number of laps following, Porsche seems to have an easier time overtaking Doohan than the other way around, but Doohan does eventually get the job done. Can Porsche re-overtake him and claim victory and his driver's championship today? Or will Doohan close that gap that little bit more? You can play the what if card today. What if Spa hadn't happened the way it did? This would be for the championship. This battle right here. We can't go fuel up, but I can tell them to go aggressively for these last 2 laps. So we're going to go aggressive, and we're going to go defend and overtake. Let them have at each other. Porsche. The defend did not work for Doohan. Porsche overtakes him quite easily. Now you got to switch that to defend and overtake. There was just over a lap to go. You'll almost want to switch that to deploy, though Porsche went a lot deeper in the overtake than Doohan did in his defense. Porsche into the race lead, the Alpines.
That's your last lap.
3 and 4. Last lap. Porsche, did he just set a new fastest lap? Maybe. We're going to go deploy and deploy. This is where he's got to try to hold him off. Doohan with DRS. Gets close, but does not get up on him. One last long straight. Last chance. Momentum. Doohan has the momentum. Does not get up the inside, though. Final corners of the season, of the series. Battery empty for Porsche. Slight chance for Doohan. Final quarter. Final race. Porsche wins. Doohan takes second.
Second flag.
Over a minute ahead. We couldn't even qualify on pole, but we win by a minute. I thought double points was canceled, but apparently not. 51 and 36. That was actually one more opportunity to close that gap. 51 points. The gap in the end. Porsche scores over 500, and in that constructors, with those extra points, 87 on the day. That makes up for the difference on the penultimate race, where one of these drivers, Porsche, did not finish. 22 wins, 22 podiums in 22 races, 21 fastest laps, 21 pole positions, and a grand total of 953 constructors points. At the conclusion of the race, I've just turned Porsche into an 86 overall with a 97 control. He's so close to getting that 100. It would be our first 100, and it's one of only 2 achievements left in the game that I have not already claimed. Jack Doohan, he's almost to an 86. We've actually pushed Logan Sargent to an 80. For our staff, we have an 86, an 88, an 83, and an 83. We do have a couple points available here. Last chance to get Doohan signed is his contract is just about to expire. Not that it matters, but we're going to jump from 12 to 15 million on the offer. He's still not thrilled by it, but he does accept it, so we renew the contract. So here's how things stand in the gaming decathlon. The game itself, the series itself, is done. If you're not interested, this is a good stopping point. But here is the final tally, though there is still one aspect of it that I'm waiting to find out about. So as things stand, our constructors, that's final, 953 points. You divide that in half, we have 476. The facilities was one of the key areas. It's one of those areas where you score points earlier in the game instead of just constructors points, because if it's just constructor points and you're at the back of the grid and never scoring points, every season goes by and you score nothing, and that's why I don't base it solely off of the constructors points. It's a cumulative score. That's a big part of it. It's half of it. It's a major part of it, but it means you're not reliant on just that. So facilities was a big piece of the early game progress, and we maxed it out. So 75, 2 points each meant 150 points for facilities. Average driver rating for our 2 drivers, not counting the reserve driver, but for the first 2 cars, 85.5 rounding up. So we have an 86 now. We just got to that 86 here at the conclusion of the season, but 1 point each. That was only 1 additional point for us. Of course, the maximum is a 100, so we come up 14 points shy of the maximum possible there. We were also a little bit shy of the maximum possible, in particular from those DNFs that we encountered over the season in terms of the points. Season 1, we only managed to score a couple of points, but by Season 2, we had 2 victories and 7 podiums. By Season 3, we scored 5 victories and moved up the grid order significantly. And by Season 4, in a 3-way battle with only 7 wins, only 4 pole positions, but consistency. While we did not win the Drivers' Championship, Porsche was 2nd, Doohan was 6th, it was enough for the Constructors. That was our first championship. For every Constructors' Championship, 30 points. For every Drivers' Championship, we add 10 points. The Constructors is the one that matters more as a team principle. Porsche, that's individual glory. Of course, last season, we were comfortable P1, P2 with Porsche ahead of Doohan and took the Constructors without much of a contest. This season, of course, there was no contest at all, as we went from scoring 776 points last year, winning 16 races and taking 8 poles, to just absolutely dominating this season, winning every single race and taking 953 points along the way, but also winning the Drivers' Championship. So 40, 40, and 30 for the last 3 seasons in the championships department, for a grand total of 110 points. And this is the final breakdown, and this is the one that has not changed yet. Constructors results, drivers results, and team heritage all add up for a score. 981 this year. I divide this score by 10, basing it off of roughly a possible 100 points was the target, and we're so close to that already with a 98, just 2 points shy of the target. Can we exceed it? Well, I'm going to have to push forward a little bit to see this updated. But with 98 as it stands, that's a grand total of 920 points out of that possible 1,000. This should increase at least a little bit more. The new team rating, it does cap out at 1,000, so we have a 1,000. Realistically, though, when you add the grand totals, the new totals together, it's 1,053. So really, we scored 105, and as things don't necessarily cap for me in this department, we'll take that 105. I'll take those 5 extra points. That brings the grand total for the series to 927 points. Those extra points not making a difference. 922 would have been enough. 927 does not change our position, but with that 927 points, that moves this game into 10th all-time on the channel, ahead of Victoria 3. Ahead of it, most of those series, more than half of the ones above us, are from Pro Cycling Manager, with 6 of the top 10 games or series all-time on the channel all being Pro Cycling Manager series in 19, 20, or 21, actually even 18 through 21. Nothing in the last 2 years currently existing, as I've really pushed the challenge portion of Pro Cycling Manager to a whole new level that I've not yet been able to get back up into that top 10 with. But the other games featured in the top 10, Idle Manager, The Viking Way, Farm Sim 19, and now F1 Manager 22. We'll see if I can repeat that with F1 Manager 23. At the time of recording, it's the same day that I told you about the poll. So the poll is not out yet, so I do not know what the results are, but I'm really looking forward. If you didn't get a chance to vote, well, by now it's probably a little late. I'm already preparing, but if you didn't, still, it's fine. Go ahead, participate anyway. No reason not to, though I don't have the link in this one. The poll, of course, deciding what the challenge for F1 Manager 23 will be. I do not think that I'm going to repeat a score of 927 in F1 Manager 23 because of that challenge. I think that challenge is going to make it a lot tougher. The scoring system ultimately will remain the same. No reason to change it, as the scoring system very much worked in the format. I think I'm going to have a lot harder time winning a championship. And if we do win the championship, probably going to be around this time frame, like right at the end, because I think we're going to have a long ways to go to overcome whatever challenge it is that you guys picked for me in the poll. But thank you for sitting with me for this many episodes. It's a long ways to go, and we've achieved a lot. We've achieved a lot in this first edition of F1 Manager. I'm really excited to play F1 Manager 23. Look for it soon. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.